Oh boy, it's finally here. Update 35 Whispers in the Walls has just released. And there is quite a bit of stuff in it, so let's check it out. Now, this is gonna be a basic overview of the update, so I'm not gonna go too in-depth on anything because I don't want this video to be 3 hours long. But I will make many a video in the next week or so where I will cover these things in more detail. Alright? I also want to mention that I'm a Warframe partner, so I got a bunch of stuff for free. Disclosure and all that. So one of the biggest parts of this update is of course the titular quest, which I'm not gonna talk about because I don't want to spoil it for you. With that said though, it's pretty much impossible to do a video like this without mentioning or showing any sort of spoilers. So if you really don't want to be spoiled, go play the quest and then come back, okay? I'll wait. So as far as new shiny stuff is concerned, we have Corvex, the new Warframe. He's all about radiation, he has a bit of damage, bit of crowd control, some status resistant, and he's a pretty beefy boy, sporting good amounts of armor and health. Then there is a Cane, which is a lie because it's obviously a hammer that does pure impact damage with really good crit stats, though it's slow as molasses. Then there is the Mangonel, which is a new ARC gun that's kind of like a hybrid between a shotgun and a railgun. And it does primarily radiation damage, which is not the worst type of damage to have on an ARC gun. And last but definitely not least, we have the Grimoire, which is a new secondary weapon type, a Grimoire. This one does primarily electricity, has 2 different fire modes, and it's pretty heavy on status. The cool thing about this one is that it has a special set of mods that you can put on it that are supportive in nature. All of these are obtainable on demos via the new missions that you can play once you finish the quest. The main hub for this update is the Sanctum Anatomica, which is where you do the quest, but also where you find all the NPCs from the new Syndicate. On top of that, we also have a Ferio, which is the new Murmur Assassination mission, Munio, which is a mirror defense mission. Then we have a brand new alchemy game mode on the mission Campfire, which I will explain in a little bit. And we top it off with the mission Persto, which is a pretty standard survival, and next, which is just an exterminate. The alchemy mission is kind of interesting. You have a crucible with 2 vials and you need to fill these vials with 2 elements to create a third one. In the example you can see on the screen right now, I'm combining toxin and electricity into corrosive. As far as I can tell, the elements just drop from the enemies you kill in the mission and you pick them up and throw them at the crucible. Once the crucible is full, it triggers an event where you have to destroy vents to keep the pressure under control. And that's pretty much it. The assassination is actually a little bit different from a standard assassination as well, so it's not just sprint to boss, kill boss, extract. You have to collect murmur eyes to locate the boss first. You do this by interacting with and then defending a console that slowly reveals the eyes in its general vicinity, and you can either keep it safe and do 1 console at a time, or you can do multiple consoles at once to speed it up. The boss, by the way, is the one they showed in all the promo footage. Now, 2 things you may have noticed in the footage is that A, we're fighting in a brand new tile set, which looks fabulous. I absolutely love the way this looks, though it's a bit demanding on your computer. And we're also fighting a different faction, the Murmur. Now the Murmur are basically just flaily rocks that sometimes fly, and they're mixed in with rogue necramechs. They're pretty fun to fight because to me it feels like it's a combination of all the other factions. The big stumpy necramechs are kind of like the Grenier, then you have the floating rocks which most resemble the ospreys of the Corpus, and all the flaily rocks remind me of Infested. And these are a proper faction. They even added a faction mod for them, so we'll probably see more of them in the future. The missions also have Zariman style plumes scattered throughout, so definitely be on the lookout for the new Vokas. These can be used to increase your standing with the new Kavia Syndicate that resides in the hub. And speaking of the Syndicate, it has 4 members: Human Lloyd, which allows you to exchange Voka for standing, trade random things for Voka, kind of like you can trade random things for plumes on Zariman, but he's also the NPC that handles Arcane Dissolution. This is a system that allows you to dissolve Arcanes into Phosphor, and you can then gamble this Phosphor for new Arcanes. The way this works is you select an area of the game from which you want an Arcane, and then you pay 200 Phosphor and 50,000 credits to get 3 random Arcanes from it. Now, the amount of phosphor you get from an arcane isn't always the same. It depends on the type of arcane you dissolve. So some arcanes give far more than others. The main vendor for the Syndicate is the Chicken, and he sells an awful lot of stuff. He has sigils, the new melee arcanes, melee arcane adapters, as well as a ton of necramech mods, because you can actually summon a necramech in these new missions. And he can also sell you all the bits and bobs you need for the new Warframe and weapons, just in case you get unlucky with the bounties or missions. And yes, we do have bounties. You can start them at the Ballsack Fish, who also handles the ranking up of the new Syndicate. The bounties are very similar to the Zariman one, so we have a bunch of different tiers and they have special objectives that you need to complete once you get into them. And finally we have the Depressed Cat, and he handles Netra cells. Netra cells are kind of similar to Corrupted Vault, but you can only do 5 of these every week. They have empowered enemies which sit at around level 200, and they have restricted spawns and consumables. These are definitely worth doing as they reward the new melee arcanes and melee arcane adapters, but they can also reward you with Archon shards. Netra cells can be done solo, but it's very much recommended to do it in a squad, because to open a Netra cell you have to enter 4 key glyphs which you pick up at the start of the mission. These key glyphs are kind of like corrupted keys, so they hinder your Warframe in some way, shape or form, so it's generally a better idea to spread them across the squad rather than carrying all of them yourself. The rest of the mission is pretty straightforward. If you've done the quest, you'll know what to do. So let us move on to melee arcanes. These actually have a nice variety of effects. They can give you bonus armor, they can give you bonus corrosive damage when you cast abilities, they can make your melee weapon hit twice, or they can provide extra crit chance for heavy attacks by doing light attacks. The last one I mentioned right there is especially crazy because of the new Tennokai system. You see, melee weapons now have an Exilus slot, and while a lot of the Exilus mods are old mods that have just been moved over to the Exilus slot, there is also a new subset of melee mods that enables Tennokai. But Mr. Internet Man, what is Tennokai, I hear you ask? Well, it's essentially a proc that triggers off of light attacks that allows you to do a heavy attack without consuming your combo counter. This is unbelievable levels of busted. I've set this thing up on my pennant, which is focused on the slash procs from heavy attacks, and I was hitting things for like 3 to 9 million. It's ridiculous. Though with that said, the Tennokai proc is fairly short-lived, and if you miss it, you will lose your combo. And you also want to build for it a little bit, like ideally you would have more attack speed than you would have on a standard heavy attack build so that you can proc the Tennokai more often. Next on the menu we have a bunch of new mods that you can get from the Murmur, starting off with Energy Nexus for Warframes, which makes you regenerate 3 energy per second. Then there is Precision Intensify, which gives your 4th ability 90% bonus power strength. And we also have a new aura called Ready Steel, which gives your entire squad 24 initial combo. Then there is Shivering Contagion for primaries, which gives your cold procs a 30% chance to be spread to enemies within 6 meters of the initial target, which is followed up by a bunch of mods that give you straight up radiation damage plus 1 extra thing. There is Radiated Reload for rifles, which also gives reload speed, Atomic Fallout for shotguns, which gives magazine capacity, Accelerated Isotope for pistols, which gives fire rate, Focus Radon for melee, which gives heavy attack efficiency, Containment Breach for arcans, which gives multi-shot, and Critical Meltdown for arc melees, which gives crit chance. And to top it all off, they also gave every weapon type a faction mod for the Murmur. Now on top of all of this, they also added Coalescent Fusion, which allows you to fuse 2 Archon shards into a new one. You can fuse Crimson and Azure into Violet, Crimson and Amber into Topaz, and Amber and Azure into Emerald. These are a little bit more niche than the original Archon charts, granting you things like ability damage on enemies affected by electricity or increasing the damage of toxin status effects. And that's pretty much it, I think. There's of course a bunch of smaller stuff like some fixes, changes, tweaks and all that as well, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about the big stuff. So as always guys, I thank you very much for watching and I hope you have enjoyed the video. Then I would also like to extend a special thank you to all the channel members. Thank you very much guys, I really appreciate your support, and if you would like to become a channel member as well, by the way, you can check out the memberships and stuff down below. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye. Ta-doo! This is the outro. Look at these videos, they're absolutely tremendous. I highly recommend them, or you can watch this playlist right here. It's very good.